Hi guys, so as you can see we are sort of up and running. I potentially skipped ahead a little bit. You'll have just seen a clip shot with my phone showing the issues with the BIOS battery and what was causing it. So in the meantime we've had lots more other fun and games which I didn't want to fix. Don't know what I just did there. I had lots of other fun and games which I didn't necessarily want to shoot because I just wanted things working and then to be able to guide you through the process. This has failed dismally. No matter what I do with this, I cannot get the CF cards to work. Now I have an idea on how to make it work, but I need a working floppy drive. I have tried some drive bands I got with the floppy drive to make that work. That's not worked for me. Unfortunately, no matter how I set these up, these two as they are now, it's 256 and a 64. The 64 meg drive boots my test machine, which is next to me, and then the 256 is available as a disc as well. The idea being that this would go into that, let me find it, this would go into this like that, and then I would leave the top loose so you can just slide it off, pull the SD card out, throw it in the PC, copy stuff to it, slide it back in and put the cover back on. That's not working at the moment. My thought is this BIOS is quite old and it is expecting things like interleave and things like that. So once we get a floppy drive, we'll try and actually format and set one of these drives up from this machine, and I think that might solve the problem. But I've tried dozens of CF cards and nothing's worked. The other opportunity is going to be a ST to IDE. What is interesting is this is running on a 1 GB IDE SSD, and although it can't see the whole thing, yep, this has got the 508 meg limitation. It is working, and if I go through, this is booted up into FreeDOS, and as you saw this in the background, it was running, and I can go into the DOS benchmarking thing. What is plainly obvious is this screen is just horrendous. You'll see the massive amount of ghosting in a second. That isn't actually the camera, the screen is that bad, it's that slow. So what next? The machine works. I need that floppy drive working before I go any further, because getting data on and off of this as it stands, although it's working, getting data on and off is a pain without the floppy. If I can make this work, then obviously that makes the whole thing infinitely more useful. The other problem I'm having is a lot of the DOS software is screaming about the lack of a floating point unit. It's going to cost me around 50 quid to upgrade the CPU in this, and it's not money I want to really spend on it if it's not going to work. So yes, we're stuck at the moment. We need to find a solution to that floppy. I did actually find a 26 pin flat flex floppy in a machine that I'd scrapped, and it turns out there's two versions of that. So having ordered a flat flex to 34 pin adapter, I'm not sure that's going to work now. So yeah, I may end up having to make an adapter if we want to get the floppy drive working. And if the drive band doesn't work, and I'm not sure this is a special enough machine to warrant it. It is quite an elderly machine, and arguably there's potentially some value in the fact that this is a very, very, very early 486. But yeah, it's summing it up. So I think for me now, the next problem is getting that floppy drive sorted. We get the floppy drive sorted, we can then format these in the machine, and hopefully that will solve the problem. I have tried MHIDE, and I have tried the I forgot what it's called now, the Seagate overlay Easy Drive, that's it, the overlay for larger hard drives. That just doesn't seem to set up properly on my test machine. So some of my problems could be my test machine, but we're far enough back now that BIOSes were a bit odd and my test machine is a Atom N270, so it's much newer, so I'm not really sure what's going on there. So yeah, we'll get the floppy drive sorted. I may order an SD to ID, I don't know, because I could potentially use it in my very old testing laptop. Not sure where to go with this next. Maybe we'll slam some period correct software on there. Turbo Pascal, WordStar, Windows 3.1. Not 100% sure about Windows 3.1 and FreeDOS, but we'll certainly give it a go. But again, that's going to be difficult to do. You know what? I say it's going to be difficult to do. I think I know how to do it, because I can copy stuff onto the second partition on this drive. It's just a faff to get it in and out. What I will do though is we'll just shut this up. I have found an easier way of getting in here. We'll move this keyboard out of the way and I'll just show you what we've got in here at the moment. So at the moment, as you can see, there's nothing in here. Oh yes, and potentially we need to look at the battery as well. That's more expensive. So the bit of paper is over the CMOS battery. What I'm going to do is take that off, put it on some fly leads and find somewhere to nestle that. But you can see the tiny little 2.5-inch SSD sat in there. That's a 1 GB unit. Hi guys, right, we did eventually get our CF setup working. I'll show that shortly, but I'll walk through how we got there. This machine is putting up such a fight. It really does not want to live, but we do now have it booting and working the way it should do. So I'm moving around, so sorry if the audio goes funny. So the first problem we had was with the CFs not being recognised, and it appeared to all intents and purposes that we were getting the cylinders, heads and sectors wrong, although they were right on the laptop and they were right on the test PC. Curiously though, the 1 gig SD, 1 gig SSD did actually work, which threw me for a bit of a loop. But this is the machine we were using. This is an HP ThinStation, which as you can see down there is a 40-pin header on, and it turns out that that wasn't actually doing what it says it was. What I believe was happening is, although it's disabled, that was using LBA, which was causing some weird offsets on the drive and hence throwing up the unable to read the boot sector and things like that. So what we eventually did is went and grabbed the crustiest, oldest machine that we have in the building and grabbed a CF to IDE adapter, and we used this. This worked. I was able to get a CF in there, get it booted, and then format the second CF, which is the removable one I want to use for loading software, and we did successfully load some software. I'll demonstrate that in a bit. But what I will do is, I'm not the only person that's going to want to do this, so we'll run through what had to be done to get there. This machine has a FreeDOS bootable USB stick in the back. I've done nothing to configure it, so all I'll do is switch you over to my monitor and we'll go through what we had to do to get this working. Right, so the first thing we're going to need is to fire this up and go into the BIOS. This machine will auto detect. We don't want that. Well, we do, it doesn't matter, but we want to go into here, and then we want to go into IDE Primary Master Access Mode, and we want to be on cylinders, heads and sectors, and that gives us that gives us our cylinders, heads, landing zone and sectors, which ties with what I've got for this card. I don't have a pen with me to write this down, but I say we've already done this one because we know it works. You will need to write that down because you're going to need to put that into the machine most likely if it doesn't have auto detect. We'll just make sure that's sat the way it should be. Now, there's a couple of other things we're going to need to change here. Our boot priority needs to be set to USB hard drive first. This may vary on your BIOS, especially on older BIOSes. This gets a little bit hit and miss. Make sure your machine can actually boot a USB stick before you waste too much time. Everything in there looks good though. Nothing we need to really worry about in there. Advanced chipset features, nothing in there that we're particularly worried. We will turn those on though, just because it will make our life easier. Integrated peripherals, right, we need to go look at the IDE here. So on chip SATA, disabled, we're not using that. We've only got one IDE channel enabled because that's all we're using. Prefetch, we want this as basic as possible, so we're going to kill prefetch mode. We want to be stuck in PIO mode. We're not worried about that. We do not want UDMA because that may potentially be an issue, and we do not want block mode. UDMA you can probably leave on because that's a method of accessing, what's the word I want? That's a protocol that's used over the wire rather than anything to do with the drive, and I don't think the cards support it anyway. But definitely I think block mode or LBA mode is what was causing our problem on that other CF card. Everything else is fine, so we're going to go and save this now. I am impressed that the CMOS battery in this thing even works. And all being well, you should get straight off into FreeDOS now. There we go. I'll have some coffee. There is a DOS prompt there, I can see it on my other monitor. No, there isn't, it's going straight into setup. So we want to go in English. We want to continue the installation. It isn't unfortunately quick. I think this is only an elderly Sempron. Yes, we want to partition our drive because there should be nothing on it. I have had this bomb out at this point. Yep. So I've had this issue a few times with this particular CF card, so it's part of the reason I didn't use it. So we'll go in and we'll FDIS this manually. Let's make sure we've got the right drive, so we want D. We want to create an active DOS partition, and we will use the whole thing. Not sure why we've got that. Let's just nuke those and start again. Not quite sure what happened there. Get rid of that. Yes. Escape. And we want to get rid of that other one as well. It's a long time since I've used FDisk. Now, when I did the disk that's in there now, I actually used DOS 622. I've got a DOS 622 boot disk. Unfortunately, for whatever reason, we want to set that as active. It is active. Let's just make sure that we are where we think we are. No, we've ballsed that completely up, so we'll start over on that. So this should now boot. The other machine I've done with DOS 622, the other CF card I've done with DOS 622, mostly because I trust it more than FreeDOS. There's been some odd behaviour with partitioning this CF cards that doesn't appear to happen with 622. So we're going to continue with the installation. Yes, we'll erase and format that. 122 megs, that's good. And this will now go off and do the installation in a second. UK English, thank you very much. As I was saying, I used DOS 622 on the actual CF card that the machine's booting from because I had some issues with the FDisk in FreeDOS. Incidentally, don't do that. The full installation will almost fill 120 meg S. The default installation, the full installation will almost fill 128 meg CF card. But as I was saying, I had some issues with this with partitioning where it wouldn't see the drive or it would bomb out. However, if you manually partition the drive, it will be fine. And we also had some problems at this stage with the installation just bombing out, and in the end it was just quicker to use the minimal DOS 622 boot that I've got. This may still bomb out. If it does, I will cut this sequence and I'll go through it with DOS 622. I'll have to go and make a 622 boot disk. There we go, we're going. So I'll speed this up, I'll drink my coffee and bring you back when we're done. Right, we're done, so we will eject that USB key. And reboot. And there we go, a bootable drive, a bootable CF with FreeDOS on. Now, somebody mentioned something about Windows and FreeDOS not playing well, so if you're going to go with Windows 3.1, then you might want to think about MS-DOS 622. Same way of doing it. If you've got this DOS 6.2 disks, this machine has a floppy. There is a way of doing it with a TSR, which I may well try, called SUSCHDRV, I think it's called, that allows you to load floppy images. So you could copy your 622 disk onto this. So you could copy your 622 image onto this and then have the floppy images on there as well, and mount those as you need them through this TSR. So there we go, we're done with that. That works, so I have another one. So I'll stop you, we'll swap over CF cards on the laptop and bring it back and just see that that did indeed boot the way it was supposed to. So, confession here, I did go back to doing MS-DOS. MS-DOS is a bit of a pain in the backside because it only supports floppies, and it's working out a way of doing it. In this case, what I did is got a basic MS-DOS install done from my memory stick onto this, then created a VirtualBox virtual machine on my PC, installed MS-DOS there using this piece of software, Turbo Image, which I will cover probably in a bit because it's actually quite a useful bit of software. Installed the full version of DOS on the virtual machine and then copied the DOS directory over onto the CF card here and then onto the root directory. So this is now set up as a usable DOS machine. Everything is there, all my drivers are loaded, and we can quite safely remove that CF card, the 8 gig one that we used as a data drive, chuck that in the PC, move stuff over to it, and then use it to install stuff on here. Because we've got this Turbo Image, we can install from floppy disk images, so the lack of floppy drive is no longer quite the killer it was. Still like it working though. So what we're going to do is I'm going to shut this down. I am curious, just off the top of my head, and Turbo Pascal runs as well. Yeah, so I'm going to shut this down and we're going to mount those CF cards properly, and then I think we'll probably call it quits for this video. The next video will deal with the keyboard and trying to work out how to get the drivers this laptop needs for various functions such as hotkey for the VGA output and things. So let's get started on that. So there we go. My battery's about to go, so that all fits in now. We can eject that, sort of. It's quite a stiff job, and once you've got the hard drive out, pop the bottom off, and there's your CF cards. So,